My guest today is Andrew Kaufman, author of, amongst other things, The Tiny Wife, possibly the best novel ever, but we'll come to that. All My Friends Are Superheroes, and his latest, The Ticking Heart, amongst others, as I said. There are others. There really are others, aren't there?
No, nobody talks about the others. You hit on all the ones people are actually reading.
Wow, where to begin with this round two? I mean, round one was 10 years ago.
Yeah, a lot has changed.
Yeah, The Tiny Wife was done, and I believe you were just coming round to promoting Born Weird.
Right.
Okay. Which means in that 10 years, you've written a grand total of about as many books as I have. 2, 3?
Let's see. Born Weird.
Uh-huh.
And then Small Claims.
Uh-huh.
And then The Ticking Heart. Yes.
Yeah,
3.
See?
That's not bad.
No.
3 in 10 years. That's pretty good.
People get into the when you're a big commercial writer and you have maybe an agent who's engineered a deal and they say, okay, we want a book every 10 months, every 12 months. People kind of get used to that, but you're not that kind of writer at all.
I'm pretty impressed with 3 years, I gotta say.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know how people write a book in a year. I tend to write a book in a year and then I'm horribly dissatisfied with it. And then I put it away and I start something else. And then I come back to it after I have the first draft of the next book.
But you're not even that kind of writer. You're the kind of writer who, I think, this is me assuming a lot, is that something has to happen to you and then you decipher it onto the page in a big jumbled mess that disguises what you're really saying in such a way that's massively entertaining with lots of morals and fables and stuff. But if you could sweep all of that away, somewhere underneath is what you think about something. Is that about right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not the, you'll go to writing schools and you'll hear people talk about writing and it's like, writing should never be therapy. Writing should never be about, what the writer's working through. And I mean, maybe that works for some people. That is not the kind of writer I am. Writing is therapy. Writing is more than therapy. It's just how I understand the world. I'm like, if something intense happens to me, the first thing I have to do is write a story about it. And I think probably that's why I'm so attracted to metaphoric works and to magic realism, stuff like that. Just because you're able to handle. Well, I feel like I'm able to handle very complicated issues in a way that is not so exact. And I feel like that actually gives me more power to work through them because you're not, everything's abstracted, right? So it's somehow all the pieces fit together somehow better for me.
Well, one of the good things about that is, is when you haven't got a character in the book that right that moment needs to turn up, as you did with The Ticking Heart, you can turn to a padlock. And in your style, you can just humanize the padlock and the padlock will say something and you can carry on with your plot. And then the padlock gets dropped and nobody got hurt. Press along.
I like the lock. Are you talking about the lock in the cardiac self-storage?
I am.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I love that guy. Yeah, for sure. I mean, but I don't want to, tell secrets out of school, but nobody's characters are real, eh? Like they're all just words on paper. So,
damn.
So really what the difference between a talking lock and a talking mailman when you're dealing with literature is mute. It's all metaphoric. This is when realists talk about how important it is to stay true to life and to have everything have what's the word, verisimilitude, or I don't buy that at all. It's all make believe. It's when you open up a book it's an artificial activity to sit there reading, right? Words themselves don't mean anything. Like every meaning that's assigned in literature, right from the word you're reading to how they sit on a page to the characters you're making, it's all constructed. So why would you limit yourself just to what has already happened? I've never understood that. I've always enjoyed literature that goes farther and brings a metaphoric understanding, because there are certain things that you can't. I think emotions are best dealt with in terms of narrative, right? If you really want to sit down and tell me how somebody's love affair fell apart, just giving me the facts isn't going to do it, right? Like that's not going to give me that doesn't explain it. That doesn't explain, even if you do hectic lifestyles and growing apart and kids and all that sort of stuff, that really doesn't explain it as much as, a metaphor where like, one of them grows wings and flies away. That is more what it feels like. That aptly describes falling out of love with someone to me way, way more succinctly and way more efficiently and way more honestly than just saying, we started arguing and we kept arguing and we couldn't get it together. So, I mean, I think that's why. Well, that's obviously why writing is a therapy for me as well, right?
Sure, but I mean, I think that takes I think you can get people like you, people like me, who are brought up on that kind of literature can speak in those terms. For some people, they just want those facts. But I mean, when it comes to books, I mean, you go into a bookstore, 99.9% of those books are going to be, we argued,
Yeah.
So why not be the 0.1%? Why not? Especially when it feels good. You write it so your writing is never hard. It doesn't look like you sit there sweating over it. It just comes out, and when you reach the end of that particular metaphor, perhaps you just walk away and go, another one will come along, and I can get on with the book. Pretty much it.
Yeah, I love that. I don't think anything should be milked at all. And I think that's sometimes. I mean, my books are all pretty short. Even the longer ones are still considered short as far as mainstream literature goes. And I feel like, I mean, I fear stretching out a metaphor or a situation or a story just for the sake of convention, just for the sake of getting to 350 pages. I would much rather read 100 pages where there's no filler, where it's tight and taut and you're just zipping through it and every word's important. And, those great books that you pick up and you don't put it down until you finish it. I love those. That's always the goal for me. I would much rather have a shorter book where there's no filler than a longer book where I think we've all read books where it's like this entire subplot is just here so that it looks better in hardcover, right? So I do feel like some of the conventions of literature are actually holding literature back right now. So,
well, I keep up. I mean, I picked up a little while ago Where the Crawdads Sing, which was possibly nominated for something, and it was everywhere. And I thought, okay, I'll check it out. Yeah, ditch it. One night stand.
I always want to win awards until I actually sit down and read the books that win awards, and it's like, this is not me. This is not. It used to be. I used to have. I don't know. I think it was a little more brash. Had a little more ego, and I always just assumed that my writing is so good. I'm going to win awards, and then for a long time I was like, well, because I'm not winning awards, maybe the writing isn't very good. And I went through a whole, I know my sales aren't like knocking out of the park either, right? So it's like those signs that a lot of writers use to judge their work really weren't paying off for me, and it did. It was hard for a while. I went through a real period where it was like, where I was just down on the writing, what I was doing. And then I just got to the point where it's like, and then you're right. It was by reading some of the award winners that it's like, well, this is way different than what I'm doing. This is like a completely different section of the record store. So
I don't understand some of how some of the books get nominated, though. I find them massively unenjoyable. It seems to be like a deal between publishers, agents, and shops, and whoever is sponsoring the award. That a Faustian bargain, perhaps.
I say this sarcastically and ironically, but also kind of not. But it's like, I do think awards are what they give you for following the rules. And so if you have a book that is able to reach a large audience, then yeah, I think that's going to help. I think that's going to help push. I do think awards are there to help writers reach a larger audience. And I think that those awards are presented to books that meet certain literary requirements that I just don't line up with. And I think a lot of great books don't line up with. So, if you have a fun sense of humor, if you're imaginative, if the writing's more conversational, I guess what I'm saying is that I think literature is a genre. And just like any genre, it has its own conventions that have to be conformed to. Page length is part of that. Tone is part of that. A certain cadence is part of that. Subject matter is part of that. And in science fictions, it's planets and aliens and ray guns. And in literature, it's coming of age and quiet, stories of I don't know, like everyday, the significance of the everyday or the importance of the everyday, and a certain writing style that also goes along with what people are considering literature. So,
but you're more of a songwriter than an author, really, in the way I find your work really lyrical. Would that be reasonable?
What does that mean? What do you mean lyrical?
When you deal with let's say a normal book, you can see the plot and you can see the characters, and you can almost see the sheet of A1 paper and the corkboard and the pins and the string, like some CSI crime board.
Murder board.
Whereas when you write a song, you sit down with what you feel right now, and it comes out, and you go, "Hey, I wrote a song," or you wrote a chapter. It flows way smoother than I'm assuming you don't plot.
I structure intensely.
Oh,
the crazy thing is, yeah. In fact, I even used a 3-act structure for most of my books.
And string and pins on a corkboard.
No, I don't use the string or pins. I do use cue cards, and I do consciously work in a 3-act structure where the first part of the book is about setting up what the characters need or want, and then the second act is putting obstacles to that, and then the third act is them either getting it or not. So it's in that way, I am crazy conventional to the point where it's almost the Ticking Heart was a little more fun because I was able to get away from that. But that's only because I totally ripped off the structure of the detective novel. The Ticking Heart is actually a genre book to the beats. When the girlfriend comes in, when the red herrings, all that sort of stuff, that is completely, it's like the Big Sleep. It's basically a retelling of the Big Sleep, but through the Big Lebowski.
It reminded me a little bit of Bukowski's Pulp.
I haven't read Pulp.
It's everyone says it's really awful and that he wrote it to be awful, but what it actually is massively enjoyable. It takes all of the tropes that you could ever want from a pulp novel, and he just uses every single one of them till they're lying up in a husk on the floor, and it's just great. It's just a really fun read. And
that's the thing I love about books too. I really love. I do enjoy a book that wants to entertain me, that wants to. I mean, I feel. Oh, I'm being really negative today, but it's like I do feel that right now literature is in a place where a lot of editors and publishers and writers have sort of given up to television. I feel like a lot of writers and readers, I guess, but have just sort of said, all right, so we have movies and TV and they're entertaining and they're, fast paced and inventive and that's crazy stuff. And so what we're going to do in literature is the opposite of that. Literature is now only books that are serious and take themselves seriously, and we have a serious pace. And I just think that's horrible. I think literature is reading a story is such an amazing way to entertain, to get a narrative. And the fact that, I mean, I'm totally generalizing, and I know I'm going to sound like I'm going to hate the fact that I've said this in 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. But it's like, I just feel like a lot of writers have given up being entertaining, have given up wanting the reader to have a good time, of wanting. I think a lot of writers ask too much of the reader, and they don't want to entertain, and they don't want to tell a great story, and they don't want it to be as structured and I don't know. I'm using the word entertainment, but I can't think of a better word.
Why not? It's a good word.
Why not be entertaining? Why not? The literature is a way better medium than film and television. It's more immersive. It's more personal. It's such a great way to tell a story. And to just assume that maybe the editors and the publishers and the agents don't want that entertainment factor at the moment. I mean, if you were an agent, and I know a couple, you'd probably want to win the Booker. You'd probably want some kind of award under your belt, as would the publisher and the editor, because that means you're doing a fantastic job. So maybe those entertaining books, maybe they're. I mean, I don't read much horror anymore. When I was a kid, I read tons of it. But over here in the UK, well, Stephen King. You must be the same age as me. Stephen King.
I'm the same age as you.
Like, how do you?
But
loved it.
But horror has disappeared from the bookstores here. You can get 4 or 5 shelves, and every single one of them will have Stephen King's name on, until the shelf after, which has about 8 Dean Koontz books, and then a sporadic spattering of,
P.C. Andrews.
Yeah. Or something that somebody put back on the shelf wrong. But even
Clive Barker.
Yeah. But, you get one maybe. James Herbert isn't even on the shelf anymore. He used to be hugely entertaining.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, too. It's like you think about all those authors who were enjoyable to read. And now there's just, I mean, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that literature is now it's sort of become a term that means good writing. Do you know what I mean? It's not pulp. It's not fast-paced. It's not story-based. It's not, it's something. We've defined this term literature. We've narrowed it down to it till it. And I do feel it's elitist. I feel like it's sort of it's almost like a retreat that the literary establishment has retreated to this place and they put up walls to try and it's a last stand sort of thing, right? And I just think that's a horrible attitude.
I think they'd be, if the literati, the agents and the publishers heard both me and you saying that, I think they'd be so disappointed. I think they want to be open, and I almost feel like, don't know, if you're a minority at the moment, you stand a really good chance of being listened to, and that's as it should be.
I agree. Pendulum swing, man. It's time it goes the other way.
Absolutely.
100%.
But to the exclusion of entertaining writers, meh.
I don't know if I equate the exclusion of entertainment right with a whole bunch of new voices, because I feel like the new voices that are coming in are also literary voices, right? So that the names that the Indigenous writing in Canada, we have a lot of Indigenous writers that are awesome, and we have a lot of we've always had a lot of female writers, but it's like even the stuff that's still winning awards and that's being praised and reviewed and getting the attention is
literary.
Yeah, they're kind of doing the same thing.
proper fucking writing
perspective, right? Like from their own perspective, from a different cultural standpoint, have different things to say on the culture in large, and fabulous. But I feel like they're still doing it in a conventionally sort of literary way, and I don't know. I fear that that's not the change that we need as a culture, right? I feel like we need to fucking just open shit up, right? Like we need to have multiple narratives. And it's like, what I think we're arguing about is whether print is dead, right? Like in Canada, my first book came out in 2003, and even on a small press like Coach House, a great press, but a smaller press, I still got reviewed in tons of newspapers and all that sort of stuff. And The Ticking Heart didn't get any reviews. I got an excerpt in the Toronto Star, which was fantastic. But now maybe that's just the fact that I'm, like 53 now, and 6 books to come out, and it's less. I'm not shiny and new, and I totally get that too. But I just feel like book reviews, there are way more book lists now. The sort of online celebrity book list has replaced the book review, and I just don't know if it does as good a job.
Well, here's a strange thing. I wrote down here a list of your books, and I thought, I'll just go. I'm sure I've missed one out. I thought I'll just go and quickly check that. Andrew Kaufman books. Wow. Okay, Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Andrew E. Kaufman. Yeah. I'm like, hey, those aren't your books.
No. I know, and I am not Dr. Andrew Kaufman. Just like, let's make that perfectly straight, if I can.
One of them,
the COVID guy, not the COVID doesn't exist guy. That's not me.
Not you.
That's a completely other guy.
But on one of the pages, there was a picture of you at the top in your suit, and it said Andrew Kaufman, and there was a biography, includes a tiny wife, and then it said, here's a list of his books, and it was obviously an algorithm that had picked them up.
Yeah.
And every book by anyone ever called Andrew Kaufman, and I was like, pretty sure he never wrote that, and you certainly haven't. There was one called How to Reconstruct Your Face, I think it is.
Really?
And I thought that might have been one of yours.
No. Yeah, well, that's true.
Maybe it could be your next one.
Yeah, I mean, the internet's a weird place, man, and it's like we're still trying to figure out how to use it, right? Like,
yeah, well, there was a point to that, which is, with you saying some people can't get a break when it comes to an agent or a deal or publishing a book en masse globally. And the internet was supposed to solve that problem for us.
Yeah.
People who are 23 and living in Boise, Idaho, or South Shields in the UK, or even Florence, were supposed to be able to come to the internet, broadcast their wares, and the world would go, wow, we missed the trick. This guy's awesome. But I can't think of one single instance where that has happened. None.
Not with books.
None.
For sure. Like, you were supposed to get rid of gatekeepers so that quality could shine through. And, I mean, I also just think print's dying. Let's just be upfront about it. Newspapers are almost gone.
Well, I just lost my magazine day job after 11 years. I mean, the writing was probably on the wall a little while before it, but we all refused to look. We were like this. No, We're not looking. And then it died. And I considered going solo again, which is something I've done before, which is incredibly hard work. And I thought,
with a magazine or as freelance?
No, as a magazine publisher and editor. And I thought, do you know what? I think magazines are done now. Unless you're Cosmopolitan or Vogue, Vanity Fair, I think
Yeah.
we're pretty much done.
Well, and there will never be anything to replace those, right? Like those brands those established brands will never be replaced. I mean, I think they may stay because they're created in that format, right? But I can't see, some website starting a magazine division.
No.
Right? I just think that physical medium, that need to have a physical copy is gone.
I saw that, I didn't know this, that Mad Magazine folded up last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I know it's been really shit for about 10, 15 years, but
it got sold on Time Warner, wasn't it, that took over that?
Yeah, and they didn't get the joke in the first place, right?
Yeah, so what are you going to do? Like, what are any of us going to do? I mean, most of my money comes from writing film and television.
Well, right? Exactly. If you want to be a novelist or an author, I mean, I've written a few books. I put them out myself because, let's just have a day of moaning. If you try and find an agent, going through the agent process will take you 6 months,
at least.
Yeah, and then waiting for the publisher to get back to you will be another. I haven't got that kind of time. I know you've got jobs to do, but I haven't got a year to sit around and think maybe, especially knowing what we've just discussed about, I'm no literary author. I just write whatever's in my head and it comes out, and some people like it. Some people haven't seen it.
I agree. I mean, I think there's lots of, anyway, I just don't know. Although numbers seem to have gone up. All the agents are talking about the numbers going up. But I think that's just a COVID spike. People bought books because they had time to kill.
Because they'd finished Netflix.
Yeah, totally. Because they just they wanted something a little different. But I mean,
reading's one of those things that everybody would like to do, but very few people actually clear the desk to make time for reading.
Yeah.
And it just gets worse now. You do your reading on your phone, yeah? You read newspapers and things, and you have enough information on your phone without sitting down with a book, which is a shame.
I agree. I think there's more reading going on than ever. Everyone's reading. I don't know anyone. You go on the subway, everybody's reading, right? But it's just it's just not printed matter. It's not a magazine piece. It's not a novel. It's, condensed, small.
Yeah. Let me get back. Sorry, go on.
No, I have nothing more to add to that line at all.
I was going to say, let's come back around to The Ticking Heart, which is where I came in. Which is, I read it and I kind of went, Andrew got divorced, because that's the overriding theme of the first chapter of the book. And I thought, I think I kind of know how you write, which I do apparently. And you got divorced. It kind of sad. Me too. 10 years ago, but. It just happens. Because I tried to explain to my friend how it's almost a continuation of The Tiny Wife, but it's not really.
I think it totally could be.
It's one of those Mobius strips where one end's really far away from the other, but when you fold it, they fit together perfectly, but don't really.
I mean, I would love to see. I would love to see an edition of All My Friends Are Superheroes, The Tiny Wife, and The Ticking Heart in the same book, because I do think. I mean, the characters don't really overlap, but there's a lot of similarities between them. But I do feel like that's one story, that all three of those books are telling the beginning, middle, and end of the same story, and. The Ticking Heart is, I mean, when I was promoting it, I would always say I was trying to put the romance into divorce, and I kind of was trying to do that. I mean, it's divorce. It's nobody really wants to read a book about divorce. I totally get that. Why focus so much attention on the end of a relationship as opposed to the one that works or one, or the beginning of one? But for me, I just think it's an important thing to talk about, right? All of us have had our hearts broken. No one has ever been in a relationship everyone has been in a relationship that has ended somehow. And more than half of the people who actually get married also get in divorce. And yet we have so many books, love stories about falling into love. And we have so many love stories, so few love stories about falling out of love. And what I was trying to do with The Ticking Heart is, like, in our culture, we have this idea that true love lasts forever. And if your love doesn't last forever, it's not true. And I think that's bullshit. And I think that's really harmful. And I think that's like Hollywood shit, that's propaganda, and that our culture has really eaten that idea and that it's not serving us well. And I really feel like we need to start thinking about love as something that is true and sincere and successful, even if it only lasts 7 years, even if it only lasts 13 years, even if it only lasts 13 months, that every relationship between two people has it's like flowers, right? This is the only metaphor I could come up with. You have annuals and you have perennials. And annuals last for a year and perennials last for multiple seasons. But nobody's given a sunflower. No one's saying a sunflower is not a real flower because it doesn't come back next year. We still love it for that. It's still beautiful. It still brings us joy. It's still this amazing plant. So let's do that with love. Let's not define the success or authenticity or brilliance of a romance or the state of love by the length of time it existed. And if we did that, I think we'd be really, we'd all be so much healthier. Our kids would be healthier. Our relationships would be healthier. People would be able to leave relationships that weren't working out in better situations. I am so for this idea. And I hope that came through in the book.
Yeah, very much. And the other thing that came through, which I had to read at least twice, maybe 3 times, I might have even have attacked it with a pencil, which is how you do a Wizard of Oz with the concept of hope. Everyone knows what hope is. Hope comes up multiple times in the book. And you're kind of like, let's just say somebody said, "Oh God, I hope I'll be famous one day." And when you actually analyze what hope is, like you did in the book, it's quite scary. It's frightening.
I think hope can be a horrible, horrible thing. And people disagree with me with that. Because it's like, that's the pat saying, right? That's the thing everyone clings to, as long as you got hope, you're okay. It's like, make sure you got hope. There's always hope, all that sort of stuff. And no, hope just makes you sit in a bad place for too long. So many people hope their situation gets better, or hope that this happens, or hope that happens.
That's right. There's a part in the book where I can't remember what it actually says, but it's something like, and you hope that after a certain amount of hours have passed, the thing you're hoping will happen, and you'll become the person that you think you are, or something like that. That really, that's screwed with my head. And like, wow, what am I hoping? And then you study yourself and you think, is that me? And it is. It's everybody. Everyone has that.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, look, let's just say that The Ticking Heart is not my most optimistic book. But I feel like what I was trying to get at in those books are very positive things. But they all come from, something that's seen as this catastrophe. When I got divorced, the number of people who, by the time I actually got divorced and got out of the house and got set up, I felt liberated, right? I felt like I was in a good place. And people were still coming up, my close friends were still coming up and saying, I'm so sorry. I heard that you got divorced. And it's like, isn't that amazing that everyone's, not only are they thinking that, but that's everyone's first response, right? Like nobody, not one person was able to say, hey, how do you feel about this? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Everyone automatically assumed it was a horrible thing. And I think that's telling too. I mean, I'm willing to go this far. I think maybe marriage should be seen like a lease. So it's like you can have like a 10-year lease, a 10-year marriage, a 15-year marriage, or a 5-year marriage. So it's like you get married, and then because it is a contract. Every marriage is a contract. It's a series of binding agreements that basically sum up financial responsibilities. And so let's just admit that. And then every 10 years or 12 years, you can figure out whether you want to continue the lease or not. Like that to me seems, but that's not very romantic. and the idea that love lasts forever sells way more T-shirts and refrigerators and boxes of chocolates, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a great book. I loved it. And I must confess, I have not read Small Claims. I did not even know there was a book called Small Claims.
Yeah, well,
What the hell?
Small Claims is this, I don't know how many people know there's a book called Small Claims. Small Claims is the only book I've ever written that's completely realist. There's no magic realism at all. And yeah, and I quite like it. But it I didn't get any foreign sales with it, and it just sort of disappeared in Canada even.
Which is where the Kindle comes into its own, right?
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, as much as I hate the Kindle or iBooks, it serves a very good purpose for things like that.
100%.
Yeah. I'd like to talk, if you wish to, about Richard Brautigan.
Yes.
Because
let's talk about
I have never had a conversation about Richard Brautigan because less people have read his work than mine, apparently. I mean, he's not a strange guy. He
was a total strange guy.
I mean, he looks strange in his pictures.
Yeah, he was cranky too, though, right? I've read a couple of biographies of him, and he was a pretty unhappy guy. And he had a lot of trauma of childhood. So yeah, he did commit suicide. So, but I mean, I find his books inconsistent, but the books I love so much. In Watermelon Sugar, I would recommend to anybody. The Hawkline Mystery, I love completely. Willard and his bowling trophies, I love. These are all, I think this is a really special writer who has a unique way of writing. The author's voice is very unique. And then the actual plots and events that go on in his books are just fabulous.
So
fabulous.
You've chosen some books there that I have at the bottom of my list. At the top of my Brautigan list is Sombrero Fallout.
I have not read that one. That's the only one I haven't read. I'm saving it.
It was my first, and it's again like a lot of great books. It's very, very short, and I think I read it in an afternoon and went, "That's just fantastic." Because as far as I recall, it's about a guy writing a book, and he reaches a certain point and he takes a piece of paper and he throws it in the bin. And that's the end of the first chapter. At the beginning of chapter 2, a sombrero falls from the sky and people have to walk around it. It has absolutely nothing to do with the book he was writing, so far as I recall. And so it continues with these interspersed. He's waiting for his Japanese lover. That's what's happening.
Yes.
And then the other chapters, there's a sombrero in the street. It's just peculiar, and yet it's not even magical. It's just just crazy. And then Dreaming of Babylon, I loved simply because it's
the detective one.
Again, the detective one. Yeah. And then So the Wind Doesn't Blow It All Away, I thought
I love that one too.
Was fantastic.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking.
That's
supposed to be the closest he ever came to pure autobiography.
Oh, right? Really?
A lot of those are stories from like the couch in front of the pond and all that sort of stuff. That was all him growing up, stories he remembered from growing up.
That is a strange childhood thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. But I wanted to bring him up because more people need to know who he is. And B, he obviously influenced you a lot.
Yeah. I was in a bookstore. I used to work in a bookstore in Kitchener-Waterloo called Second Look Books. And I still remember the day I'd gone through all of my Vonnegut's. I'd read all the Vonnegut. I'd finished the last Vonnegut. And I asked Rosemary, I could still see her. And I asked her, she ran the bookstore. She owned the bookstore with her husband. And I said, okay, where do I go now? What do I do now? All the Vonnegut's are gone. And so she picked out, I think it was The Abortion was the first one that she gave me.
That's a tough book.
Oh, yes. And that one does not hold up well, I gotta say. I would not, to anyone listening to this, do not start with The Abortion.
Read that last.
Last time I tried to read it, I didn't get through it. I just abandoned it. So, but I mean, I can't believe you don't have In Watermelon Sugar higher. That's like such a beautiful book.
I tried. I struggled with I didn't like from the very beginning the not the way it's written, but the words. Some of the words he uses to describe things really jar, and because they happen over and over in every paragraph, I was like,
well, that's not the book for you then, because it doesn't get any better.
No. But a classy writer, and I would put you. I know you probably won't like it, but I put you up there with him.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, but
I got lots of horrible things I could say if you prefer.
Well, you balance it out.
Nah. You suck.
All right.
No, but as I was going through, as I do sometimes, and this is relevant. Brautigan's poetry is not as strange as his novels at all.
Yeah.
But when I went back to see what he'd done with them, he did fantastic things like I've written 9 poems. Let's put a book out. So he'd get a book printed of 9 poems, like this wouldn't happen today. He'd hand sew them and then give them away to people in the street. One of them even had, so far as I know, which was quite a big run, a packet of seeds in it. Is it called Please Plant This Book?
Plant this book.
Yeah. And gave them away. And all of the poetry books came with disclaimers that anyone could use them anywhere so long as you were giving your magazine away for free.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's relevant to this conversation with you because I didn't know this before, but you used to have a fanzine.
Oh, yes.
And I haven't done, my fanzine was 1997. Yeah, 97. I really missed. I don't actively miss doing it, but I miss the me that used to do it. The me that sat up all night with some old Spider-Man comics for backgrounds and typing stuff out and then cutting the square and then stick it on. And
late night trips at Kinko's around here. There used to be. They're gone too. It's that. I mean, again, it's so interesting to talk about a print culture, but there used to be a chain of photocopier stores called Kinko's.
Yeah.
And we're open 24 hours a day. I don't know why. Probably just because there were guys in the warehouse doing big runs for somebody else, for businesses or whatever. But so you'd go in there like midnight or 1 a.m, and you'd put together your zine, and there'd always be like 1 or 2 other people who would show up. And it was this whole like secret network of people who were making these little photocopied magazines for no reason. There's
Yeah.
say what you want, but analog culture, there's no way that's going to go viral. There's no way for anything handmade to go viral like it can now with the internet. Somebody can put a tweet up or a Facebook or a little, a 15-second TikTok movie that can reach millions of people. But that whole zine culture, that whole independent film culture, that I love that sort of small rebellion media, right? I remember there used to be when I lived in Kitchener-Waterloo, back when VHS, remember VHS tapes?
Oh, yeah.
You rent them.
Yeah.
So there used to be this guy called the Unknown Critic. And at the end, after the credits of a movie on a rental, he would do he would just tape on right onto the videotape his review of that film, just put that piece of tape over the thing that lets you not record. And he wore a paper bag on his head and he would just review the movie that you just watched. And it was like, I so miss the purity of those kind of artistic statements, right? Because even, you don't put shitty pictures on Facebook. You don't put pictures where you look like crap or you're bored. You know what I mean? Everything on social media is your best foot, right? And so there is, I think, a constructedness to it that I miss with that pure digital. The only reason I'm doing this is because I'm inspired to.
What was it about?
Love that. Pardon?
Nothing. What was your fanzine about?
Oh, anything. Scruffy. Yeah, it was just like pop culture. It was one of those, we're going to take pop culture seriously and deal with it academically, like early 90s things, right? That sort of stuff.
Actually, what did I say? 97. That's wrong. It was 87 when I was doing mine. I was 19, 20. That's more like it. And it was like 5-10 pence a sheet, so you had to get really good at producing your fanzine, and inevitably you'd do one sheet and you'd turn it over and it would be a new photocopier and the back would be on upside down, or then you had to figure out which paper.
Oh yeah, it was a nightmare.
And I've
probably a little high.
I've stayed in print for my whole life since then, in some way. That little fanzine has, got me a mortgage, got me a car, kept me alive somehow.
Oh my God. There was this, so all my friends are superheroes came from an article I wrote for Scruffy called If My Friends Were Superheroes, where I just took all my closest friends and turned them into superheroes. And that was the idea for that novel. 100% was like, oh my God, that really worked. I'm going to do more of that. That's, so those love them. Love those bygone. I mean, I guess you could just do a PDF and what's stopping?
But why?
Just posting it on Twitter? It's not random.
I kind of like the idea. I mean, I kind of like the idea of sitting here with some glue, which I have some glue right here.
Nice.
I have some scissors. But I don't know where you'd find a photocopier. There are no copy shops left. Let's do it.
There aren't even copiers in libraries anymore.
Are there any libraries anymore?
Oh, well. Can you get into them? That's the question.
I think things are going to get worse before they get better. We'll see bookshops closing down, book chains. I mean, most of them that are left are big chains. So when they go, it will be a really big crash. A really big crash.
I agree. And whether the industry can then survive the forest fire.
Yeah.
It long enough before the mushrooms and, do you know what I mean? Ferns start coming up and growing again.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So who knows? And maybe fanzines are the way out, and maybe you and me have got a really good head start on this.
Done. I'm back.
Done.
Scruffy. It's number 27, something like that. I think somewhere around there.
Have you still got copies of all of them?
No, I don't. In fact, I even made one on video, and I don't have a copy of it anymore. One was a VHS that it was when I lived in Halifax, and you had to go down to Critics' Choice Video. You could rent it.
Dear me. Did you ever make any money? I didn't.
What, with the zine?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no, I lost money.
Yeah.
Every issue.
Oh, easily. It would easily cost 7-8 times more than what you could ever sell it for, I guess, easily.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But it was the principle of the thing. The principle. Yeah. Those are the days. Starting to sound like an old person now.
Well, I am.
What? One question that I do have. I read a reference to a book that you were working on called The Waterfields.
Yes, that became bored weird.
Okay, then that's that answered.
Yeah.
Done. Bye. What's next?
Time. This was great. I really, I always enjoy talking to you, man.
It's always good fun. What's next for you?
So I'm just finishing up a book now, called. It's actually, believe it or not, it's about male toxic masculinity, which is a very strange concept for me to be writing about. But I don't know. I was really after the divorce and a bunch of stuff. So I really looked into it. So it's 2 novellas that are linked. They're in the same world. It's a world where animals are part of the population. And the first one is about a guy who has a rebound relationship with a bear, and like a real bear. And then
okay.
Yeah, I know. And
I'm gonna give it to you.
These are bestseller ideas, eh? You can feel it. And then the other story is about a couple, and the Minotaur moves next door. So so they're almost done. In fact, I should be finishing them right now. But Coach House is agreed to put them out. Atlanta Wilcox at Coach House. I'm very excited about it. Right now, what we're hoping to do. Now, everyone seems on board with this idea, but I don't know. It's a long way away from the idea stage to being on a table. But I want to publish them with 2 front covers.
So like an old Ace sci-fi book.
Exactly, a 2-for-1 science fiction special.
Superb.
So there's the bear and the Minotaur, and the 2 stories meet in the middle. So that's what I want to do. I'm hoping that I can make that happen, because that would be so much fun.
That has to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And it totally makes sense for the content too, because they play off of each other. They're kind of so.
Where else? I mean, people don't do those Ace books anymore. They should.
I think so too.
People don't do illustrations on book covers anymore either, and we could go down that rabbit hole and get really lost, right? Terrible.
Oh yeah, an illustration might work for this one. Anyway, so yeah, that's the new book. And then I'm working I have another book that is
about facial reconstruction.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no. Perfect. Let's leave it at that.
We'll cut that end bit off then. It's nice to see you.
Great to see you too, man.
I will actually email you a couple of titles of a couple of books that I read that did get nominated for awards and are actually really good.
Oh, right on.
Not many, but maybe 2.
Yeah,
but
please do.
I'll fire them over anyway. And we'll do this again much sooner than in 10 years, because that would be awful.
You tell me when. I love this conversation, so I'm there for whenever you get a chance.
Maybe we should do it every 6 months and just check in and do
I'll do that. If you want me to talk about something, I can totally talk about something. Just let me talk about something other than myself.
Sold.
All right.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you so much,
very much.
sir. Yeah, please stay in touch, eh?
Yeah. Take care of yourself.
Okay, thanks, man.
See you, Chief. Bye.